What's up, PokerBEASTs? Welcome back to the vlog. Kato here, and today we're doing a $300 buy-in at the 1-3 game at Hamul Casino. The first hand I look down at under the gun is 10-9 of clubs, 293 in my stack. I'm first to act, and so I open it up to 15. Action folds around to the cutoff in seat 4, who decides to make the call. The button gets out of the way. The small blind defends. The big blind comes along. 60 in the pot, 4-way action to the flop, and it comes out 8, deuce, deuce. It's a paired board, but I do have the 8 of clubs giving me backdoor straight and flush draws. I'm going to check this one, try to see a free card. I might put out a bet if the board wasn't paired. No need to try to force out 3 players from this pot when I do have some equity. It checks all the way through. We go to the turn, and this time the small blind decides to lead out. He makes it 20. I did pick up a club, may be able to pull the backdoor flush, and so I'm going to float for 20. Everyone else folds, and the river's the 6 of diamonds, bringing in absolutely nothing for me. I'm sitting with 10 high, and I can't stand up to any pressure from the small blind, and he applies pressure, makes it 25. I quickly toss my hand away, and my opponent's nice enough to show 1 card, but it's the Jack of Hearts, whatever that means. It's definitely not Jack Deuce of Hearts. My best guess is Jack 8 of Hearts. I'm down to 258, top back off to 300, put the rest of the chips in my pocket, and wait patiently for my next hand worth playing, which will come right after you hit that like button. Thank you so much for your support. I look down at pocket 8s, scoop the blinds, and then down at 9-7 of Hearts, and win a slightly bigger pot. But the next real hand that I pick up is pocket 10s in the small blind, $300 in my stack. The button has decided to straddle the pot, which is good news for me. The middle position player opens to 15. Action folds around to me. My hand is strong enough that I need to put in a 3-bet, and also I'm in the small blind. I don't want to go out of position multi-way to the flop. I want to get it heads up or take the pot down now. So I slide out 45. The middle position player has no problem calling the 30. $100 exactly in the pot. It looks like the ghost of Kiev is in town because a pesky ace comes on the flop. But in my case, I had to dodge the king, queen, and jack as well. Not always likely. That's why it's good to get it heads up. I'm going to continue betting. Represent the ace. I did put in a 3-bet. I make it 30. And the villain across the table slides in 6 reds to make the call. Concerning because he called the 3-bet pre-flop. There's not a lot of draws on this board. He probably has an ace. A jack comes on the turn. And I could try to force him off this hand, but it's hard to force an ace off a board like this. And so I decide I'm just going to check, try to get to the river. Of course, checking and giving up initiative on this particular board really kind of turns my hand face up, says I don't have an ace, more likely a big pocket pair. There aren't a lot of aces that I would 3-bet pre-flop and check on this turn, and my opponent must sense it because he slides out a small bet of 30. There's 190 in the pot. I only have to call 30 to win 220, but I do have to worry about the river. And the way this hand has been played, it's safe to say that I don't have the best hand, but I fall into the fallacy of, well, it's such a small bet, the pot is so big, maybe I'll hit my 10 on the river, and I go to fold, but then I relook at my cards, put my card protector back on, and make that impulsive call. We've all done it before, and now I'm out of position, going to the river, praying for a 10, but it's not a 10. Now I just have to check and give up this hand. I posture for a little while, trying to slow him down, just trying to get the showdown. I finally decide to check, and now any pressure from my opponent, I'm going to have to toss the hand away just like I did last hand. But he decides to check as well, maybe worried I had ace-king, because he flips up ace-jack of clubs. He played the turn perfectly, squeezed max value out of me, maybe a little passive on the river. I think a bet fold line would have been more appropriate. I have a strict rule to never drink at the poker table. First of all, I'm at work, and you can't drink on the job. Second of all, when I drink, I want to relax. I definitely don't want to have to think and focus, but sometimes a fan of the vlog will buy me a drink. It'll come up, the hostess will hand it to me, and I just can't turn it down. So in this case, I had a shot of tequila. Hopefully, that doesn't come back to bite me in the butt. 194 in my stack, and I look down at ace-king of clubs in the cutoff. The player across the table limps. The other middle position player limps. It gets to the hijack. He decides to limp as well. What is this, the Olympics? I've got the hand and the position to make it 20. And of course, if you have a $3 hand that you limp with, chances are it's now a $20 hand that you're willing to play out of position. And that seems to be the case in this instance. The middle position player throws in the extra 17. The hijack throws in 17 as well. 67 in the pot. 3-way action, the flop, and it comes jack high. Very connected board. 2 spades, jack 9, right there in that range where, you know, you can limp with 10-8. You can limp with jack 9. You can limp with some weak spades. And so when it checks to me, I decide instead to elect to check as well. See a free card, and it works out beautifully because a king peels off on the turn. Now I'm in this battle. The middle position player quickly checks. Actions on the hijack. He checks as well. I'm going to be putting in a bet, defending my hand, going for value. I go with the standard half pot size bet of 35. The middle position player quickly tosses his hand away. The hijack takes another look at his hand. Maybe he wants to come along, but he decides he's going to fold, and victory is mine. Scooping a pot, not a big pot, but any chip helps me get back up to where I need to be. 243 in my stack. 4 minutes later, I get the hand that's like pre-flop crack, pocket aces in middle position. I open it to 15, 3 reds into the center. Folds to the cutoff, who makes the call. The button comes along. The small blind defends 4-way action. Going to the flop, it's 4, 8, 7, 2 clubs. I don't have a club in my hand, but I have pocket aces in my hand. So I'm going to continue betting, make it big, charge those draws. I make it 50, almost a full pot-sized bet. The cutoff folds, but not the button. He stacks out chips and slams them into the center of the pot. I want to hear what you think that means. To me, it doesn't represent strength. To me, it seems to represent some internal doubt. You know, he's kind of psyching himself up, going for something that maybe he shouldn't. Maybe he's thinking, I better hit my card. The 4 comes out on the turn. Probably not his card, but it's definitely helpful for my hand. Now 8-7 is dead to rights. There's 163 in the pot. I only have 178 left. And with a stack to pot ratio of about 1, I think the best move is to go all in, really deny equity to his draws, make him pay to play. My hand's so disguised that a hand like ace-8 would probably call, an overpair like pocket 9s would probably call, so I ship my whole stack in. 178 is the bet, 341 in the pot, and now the action's on my opponent, and he's not immediately folding, he's not immediately calling, he's asking for a count. He has plenty of chips in front of him, and like an air mattress supporting 2 playful adults on top, he seems to be deflating, and he slams his chips again like he's in a UFC cage fight against him. But no, baby, this is poker. What are you going to do? I wouldn't be surprised if he had 8-7 and feels like I have an overpair and the 4 counted fitted him, or maybe he has a hand like ace-5 of clubs. Finally, he pulls out a stack of 100, does a few slams just for good measure. He grabs another 100 stack. It looks like I've set the hook, and I'm going to be reeling those chips in. But no, the line snaps, and he wiggles, squiggles, flaps away. What does a fish do? I don't know. He's not a fish, though. He didn't call. He's more like a barracuda, and I show my aces. Why did I show my aces? Because there's a promotion. You get a ticket if you show winning aces, and I've won like 3 or 4 grand with this promotion, so I know you guys might have some alternative or negative thoughts about that, but that's the reason why. The dealer pitches me 2 cards, Queen Jack offsuit in the big blind, 341 in my stack. The middle position player throws out 15. The hijack calls. The button calls. The small blind defends. I have to call 12 to win 75. I have a decent hand. It can get me in a lot of trouble. So, of course, I'm going to see a flop, and it looks like I'm getting myself in trouble because it comes out queen high. Top pair, decent kicker, decent backdoor straight draw, but with 5 players in this pot, I can't be naive to assume that I have the lead in this particular pot. Checks to the original better. He makes it 25. The hijack calls. The button calls. Now I really don't think I'm good. The small blind calls. This situation is just getting out of hand. Part of me wants to fold. Part of me wants to squeeze and kind of do a semi-bluff. The other part of me just wants to call with all this value, see what the turn is, reevaluate. I decide on the call, and we go to the turn. And I think it's a blank for all players. Doesn't improve my hand. Most likely doesn't improve anyone else's. The small blind checks. I pass the action back to the original better. And this time, he is not joking around. He grabs 100 right off the top of his stack. And he kind of does the same slam as the other player. I'm starting to think it's kind of like a confidence booster. Like, let's go, you got this. And in this case, he may have something like aces, ace, queen, kings. And he just wants to win this pot, doesn't want any drama. He knows that although he has a strong hand, he's up against 3 other players. There's a lot of draws out there. And the hijack makes the call. The hijack, who folded to my pocket aces, puts 100 in the pot. All that's left to act on this street are the keepers of the blinds. Small blind acts first, decides he doesn't want to play, tosses his hand away, and I follow his lead out of the exit. Let's go ahead and see the conclusion, though. The 9 of spades comes on the river. The player who's been betting goes all in. He gets a call, and he flips up king, queen offsuit, and the other player flips up the losing hand, queen, jack offsuit, the same hand as me. All the queens were accounted for, amazingly enough, and luckily I wasn't the one that got sucked into that pot. 290 on my stack. 2 hands later on the button, the dealer passes the cards around. I look down at queen 10 offsuit, similar to my last hand, not as good. There's a straddle on the pot. Both middle position players limp. The cutoff limps, and I'm on the button. No one has raised. No one has a hand worth raising. There's $28 worth of dead money in the pot. I have a decent hand, so I decide to turn my queen 10 offsuit into a 3-bet bluff. I put 40 out there, and this is not a candidate I would recommend. I think queen 10 suited at the very least, but something like ace 5 of clubs is also a great one. The under the gun player shoves all in, which I didn't look over there at a stack. You always want to be aware of the stacks at the table, the big ones, the short ones. And so now I have to go all the way to the river after putting in even more money that I don't want to put in. 33 more now. And then the cutoff calls. And so now I'm priced in, but the odds of me winning are going down, down, down like the value of the dollar. The fact that the player to my right has a limp, then call a $67 4-bet range is kind of crazy to me, but it makes sense that he might have something like pocket 7s, pocket 8s, pocket 9s. The flop comes out with a 10 on board. Almost a deja vu of the previous hand. When the cutoff checks to me, I bet 100. Not really sure where I was going with this bet. It doesn't make a lot of sense, although it did generate a fold. The turn brings me 8 outs, and the river is a dud. Of course, he had me dominated, shows pocket queens. I've only been playing for about an hour and 20 minutes, and already I'm trying to force pots and finding excuses to play outside of my range. I can tell that I'm lacking patience today, and that's a dangerous combination. We've all been there, and oh look, King 10 offsuit, only 2 hands later in the low jack. I gotta play this one. I just don't have a fold button today. And just like an underpaid golfer, I go for the chips and raise. I get 4 callers, the button calls, the big blind calls, so does the middle position player, 61 in the pot, and it does come king high. I do have a chance at this pot, but there's a lot of players in. My kicker's just a 10. It's not really draw heavy, so I don't have to worry about protection as much. I'm just trying to get out of here before I burn too many chips by playing bad, so I check it, checks through, we go to the turn. It's a 7 of hearts. That does bring in some extra draws that I need to be concerned about. So when it checks all the way through to me, I decide I'm going to put it into it. I make it 30, and I do get a caller out of the button. Another 4 comes on the river, doesn't bring in any flushes, cancels out some 2 pairs that he could have. I'm probably being too passive, but I want to kind of use this hand as a bluff catcher and just check call him on the river if he decides to bet. So I check it over to him, and he checks it right back. I flip up my hand. My hand's going to be good. Almost back to my original buy-in, 294. I'm not playing my best, lacking patience at the beginning of the session, so I'm going to get out of there. I went a small pot up to 325, and then remember I put about 20 bucks in my pocket when I topped off. In for 400, out for 354 for a loss of $46. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to pick up your card protector. Link in the description below. Kato out.